Engagement with Doorking. I am the regional sales manager for Texas, Louisiana, and El Paso area. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our products and what Doorking does, what we can offer. So we'll start off first with, let me get in here real quick. Bear with me, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here with the pointer. Can everybody see my Doorking screen?
Yeah, I can see that.
You can see that? Okay, good deal. All right, so let's talk a little bit about who Doorking is. So we've been around since 1948, so for a long time. We're designed and manufactured straight out of California, so we're built in the United States. We have more than 4,000, way more than 4,000 installing dealers throughout the United States, Mexico, and Canada, as well as throughout the rest of the world in Europe and the Middle East. We do offer factory trainings for our dealers and anybody that's installing our equipment, including distributors. As a matter of fact, we're having one now currently in Florida. Um, all our regions, again, have dedicated regional managers, which is what I do. We do have a YouTube channel as well. That is going to have anything from just examples of what our equipment does, all the way down to training videos. That's great for dealers. It's great for end users or anybody that's just trying to get familiarized with Doorking. And we'll go over a little bit of that towards the end of the presentation. We have a tech support hotline, obviously. You can call in and ask and get help with software or hardware tips. One of the great things about Doorking, because we've been around for such a long time, we do have a lot, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of legacy product out in the market. So because of that, we are very sensitive to being backwards compatible. In other words, if our new product comes out, more than likely it's going to be backwards compatible with some of our older systems. Okay. So just in case for some of you that don't know or aren't familiar with what Doorking does or what a telephone entry is. A telephone entry system is anything that's interactive. It's an interactive device that gives you controlled access for an entry point. It also gives you communication between the tenant and the visitor, right? So the tenants are going to use a keypad or some sort of device to get into the system, to get into the property, and the visitor doesn't have that option, obviously, so they need some way to get into the property. So what a entry system does is going to give them communication between the visitor and the resident, and that's going to allow them to have access to the property or not. Okay. So these solutions are broad. They're for a lot of different applications. They can be used for residential, large multifamily residential areas, for example, gated communities, apartment complexes, mixed-use buildings where they might have a restaurant on the bottom floor and maybe there's apartments on the top floor, student housing, self-storage properties. These are great for anything from, again, residential to commercial to industrial, as well as we service a lot of parking facilities. So in each one of these applications, depending on what you're going to be using our product for, you have to ask yourself some questions and determine, is this going to be for a single residential home? Is this going to be for a multi-resident application? If it's going to be for multi-users, how many different gates or doors do they need control? As well as how many residents are there? How are you going to grant access for the residents? Again, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and you can use multiple ways as well to get in. It doesn't have to be just one. So are they going to use a keypad? Are they going to use a remote control or some sort of a tag, right? How is access going to be granted to your visitors? So most telephone entry systems will have a way to communicate or call a resident. And again, they can give them access that way, but you need to decide all these things first. How is the system going to communicate? How are you going to get out to make a phone call, how are you going to get data back and forth between your system? All right, is that going to be done via network? Is that going to be done via cellular? How's that going to be done? Are you going to be going directly to a computer? And does the system need to be PC programmable, first of all? Right, so those are all the things that you need to ask yourself. So now that we know that, we've kind of gone over what a telephone entry system is, let's talk a little bit about our legacy product. This is the tried and true legacy product. If you haven't seen our products out in the market, you'll probably start seeing them everywhere now after you've seen this presentation. So our legacy product is going to be our 1830 series, and there's a lot of products in that line. Our most popular being in 1835. What we're showing here on the screen is in 1837. It is in essence the same thing, except the aesthetics are a little bit different. So these legacy products will handle up to 3,000 memory capacity. That's going to be for residents, right? So 3,000 residents or 3,000 users. There's 8,000 capacity for devices, and that's going to be anything from maybe a proximity card or a remote control, anything that's going to give you access into the property. Access restrictions. So within our system, you can give people different permissions. So for example, a resident is going to have way more permissions than what a visitor would have, and management is going to have the most permission or all permissions, correct? So these legacy systems are able to expand up to 48 doors with what we call expansion boards. So on the system itself, you're going to have your keypad, a display, obviously. You're going to have the A to Z scrolling button. That's how you're going to look for the person's name. And you have a call button to call that particular person. You can also do wireless access control. Wireless access control, we can do that up to 24 doors. Again, these have 8,000 transactional logs. In other words, if I go and I get access to, if I swipe my card and I get access into the pool, that is going to go into the log. So I can have 8,000 records before it starts over again. Okay. So there we have our legacy product, and then we have a little bit different version of that legacy product, and we'll go over that here in a little bit. So the 80 series are going to be what we call our traditional models. And as you can see, there are different versions available here. These are pretty much the same thing with slight differences. So for example, the 1833 is going to be our access control device, control panel, and it has a keypad on it. These are very popular, for example, in New York or very large where there's a lot of people in a small area. They don't want perhaps a screen because it could get broken. They don't want a screen because they don't want people to see people's names on there, so it's very secure. And so the only thing they have is a keypad. So the person visiting would need to know the directory code to call that tenant, and then they can give them permission or not. 1834, 1835, and 1837 are all going to be very similar. The difference moving up to the 1834 is it's going to have now a screen so that you can now use your scrolling feature to find the person that you're going to call, and then it has a call button. 1835 builds on top of that, and it will now have weekend control. So you have two different weekend controls and two different relays on there. So again, all of these systems will come with 2 doors already built into the system, and then you can expand on that if you'd like to, up to 48 doors. 1837 is just like the 1835. Again, we're building on top of that. The difference there is it will have a larger screen. If you want to have a larger screen, something a little bit nicer. Now we have our 1830-90 series. Again, is the same thing as we just looked at. The differences here is a slightly larger enclosure, not much larger, slightly larger. It's a little bit easier to get inside and work on if you're the technician. The biggest thing about it is going to have at the bottom left-hand side, you're going to have a little spot there for an optional proximity reader if you wanted to add a proximity reader to that. You can see here that there's different versions of that available. So there's different shrouds and shroud colors if you wanted to add a shade to that or not. So that was our legacy product. Does anybody have any questions on that so far? No? Okay, so the next thing is we'll talk about our Evolve series. So we had our Legacy series. Now we'll talk about our Evolve series. So these are the newer product that are coming out that we build on top of those features. The aesthetics change a little bit. And we'll start off with our very first entry into the video entry world or the Evolve world. So this particular system has been out for about 3 years now. It's meant for residential and light commercial. It is a video entry system. It's network ready, so you can plug your internet directly into it for communication. If you can't do that, there is a cellular option that's available for it as well. Because it is a network board, this is completely cloud-based system. So if you're going to make any programming changes, if you're going to add residents or give different permissions, that's all done on the cloud, which is a great feature. Now you can just get on your internet, doesn't matter if it's on a PC or your phone, and you can make those changes and implement those very quickly. And because of that, this is also app-based. So you will download an app onto your phone. Through that app, you can receive video phone calls or voice phone calls, depending on how you set that up. And you can give entry or access that way. There is a built-in IP camera on there. It's a low-lux camera. So that is used for, so it's a high-definition IP camera. And the low-lux gives you the ability to have a much better picture at night. So on the system itself, the keypad and the call button will light up soft white light. And that's just enough, as you can see in the picture here, that's just enough to light you up at nighttime to give you a great picture so that you can see the person that's coming to visit you, and you can decide if you want to give them access or not. This particular system, again, is meant for small residential or very light commercial. Because of that, you can have up to 10 directories or residents. Think of a directory as a home or an apartment complex. You can think of it as an office, right? Each home or each office can have up to 4 phones set up for it. So there's 10 offices and 4 phones per office. That's 40 phone numbers that you can have on there. This does something that's called broadcast calling. And what that means is if you have all 4 phone numbers maxed out in your directory code, when I go to call that office or that home, it'll call every single number that you programmed into it simultaneously. That way you're not rolling over and taking time. So if one person doesn't answer, another person answers. Okay. These systems, although they have only 10 directories, we do offer up to 500 entry codes. So if you have a small office, but you have a lot of people that need to gain entry, up to 500 entry codes. There are 3 different relay outputs on these. One usually most likely is going to be for your vehicular gate for entrance. The other 2 can be used for whatever you want to put them on. You can put that for a pedestrian gate. Maybe you want to put that for a door, or whatever you want to add that other relays to, you can go ahead and do that if you like. Again, this is app-based. So what you would do for Apple or Android, you go and you would download Doorking Resident. You download that onto your phone. That gives you app-based control. So this is similar to what that looks like. You can see you got your 3 different relays. By the way, you can name those relays. You don't have to keep it at door 1, door 2, door 3. You can name those whatever you'd like. You can see just above that where it says it's online. It means it's working. And next to that, you're going to have your system. So if I were to click on that, it would show every single system that I have available to my app, right, that I have permission to work. At the bottom, you have start video monitor. You can actually start that camera without having to wait for someone to call you. Refresh system status, again, that's just if you feel like for some reason you're out of sync with what's going on site and your app, you just push system refresh. Okay. These are set so that you can receive video calls. So if someone pushes the button, it calls my phone. I get an actual video of that person that I can speak back and forth to, and I can give them entry or deny them entry. But let's just say, for example, this is going to office and you have a secretary at the front desk. You don't want that going to her personal cell. You can set this up so it's voice only call, and this will work just like a traditional system would. So she would receive that phone call on her landline. She would push 9 to let them into the property. Okay. So now that we've talked about our entry into the video world, um, these are our newest version of that. So if the 2112 was for smaller residential, smaller office complexes, our 2137 or 2132 series are going to be for multi-resident. Those are going to be for large apartment complexes, large communities, very large office complexes. So the great thing about these new systems is we spoke about this earlier, right? We try to build all of our systems so that they're work retro. In other words, I can go out to a site that already had our system in it, and it had, let's just say, 20 other doors. Well, now instead of going out there and having to replace the entire access control system because I want to upgrade to an app-based system, I just have to replace out the head end or the controller unit. Now I have a color screen, a larger color screen. I have a video camera on it. But I don't have to go out and replace every single door because this will work backwards compatible with it. Same thing as the 2112. This is all cloud programmable. So everything is done through online on the cloud. You still have local memory on these. That means if for some reason you lose network or you lose internet, your system will still work because all the information is stored there locally as well. So all your entry codes will work, your cards will work, everything will still work except for you won't be able to make video phone calls. Something very important to remember as well is these are compatible in Mexico and Canada, which is not something that was capable before, so it is now. Something that I didn't mention is these larger color screens. We are also going to have a touchscreen version available for that as well. So on our legacy product, we had 3,000 users and 8,000 devices. Well, this is really unlimited because it lives in the cloud or the network world. So I can put much, much more. We have a community in Arizona that has 25,000 homes. So a system like this, that makes it possible. There's different security levels, whether you're a resident, you're a visitor or guest, maybe you're a vendor, FedEx, something like that. There's different levels available in our software for this as well. The resident app has a lot of different functions as well as the management app. So you'll be able to make video phone calls, see video phone calls. You'll be able to start the video monitor, the camera if you'd like to. You have various different relay controls, and you have video recording retrieval. So if I want to go back and look at a video maybe from 11 o'clock this morning, I can do that. Now, again, remember that it depends on the level of permission that you've been given. So if you're a management of the company, of the location, you have all of that available to you. But if you're a resident, depending on the security level that the management gives you, is all that you'll see. Another nice thing about this is it has what's called geofencing. In this case, geofencing is going to be used for keeping these systems working while you're in a certain area. So in other words, it's a bubble. So whenever you install this at a certain location, you're going to put its address into the system. It goes out and it sees where you're at. And now you can create what I call as a geo bubble. So, for example, I have to be, and this is all set up by the property management company, and it's totally customizable. But I can go in there and I can put that I am at this address and I want it to work 1 mile away from that address. So what it does is it keeps someone outside of that area from opening and closing a gate. Okay. They'll still be able to open and close that gate if someone calls them. So if someone initiated contact, they picked up their phone, they're talking to that FedEx person or delivery person, they can still open and close that gate. However, if they open up the app, they're not able to open and close that gate directly from the app unless they're within that distance that you set, for example, 1 mile. Okay. So that's a neat, very neat feature. These systems, when you open them up, are completely Ethernet ready out of the box. They have an RJ45. You can plug in Ethernet directly to it if you like. If for some reason you can't get Ethernet to it, we do have a cellular option that's available, and that works with both T-Mobile and Verizon. There's different access restriction security levels we just spoke about. Something that a lot of people don't realize is our systems are also compatible or can work elevator control. So we can work up to 8 elevators, up to 64 floors with these systems. We are now going to have expiring schedules, which is important, again, for maybe a vendor, or you're going to have a one-time delivery, or you have maybe a one-time visitor from out of town and you want to give them an expiring schedule, all right, an expiring access to that. So this is what the board looks like in the new system. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a network jack. That's where your internet would go plugged into, and that would speak to the cloud. And at the top middle left-hand side there, you're going to have a input for our cellular, and you can see a picture of our cellular there. Again, that's AT&T or Verizon. So that goes within the box. In our legacy systems, cellular was a separate piece. It was a whole separate box that you had to find a spot for on the property. Now it's still a separate piece. It's optional, but it goes within that same enclosure. There is an external antenna that you can either mount onto the box itself or onto the column or wherever you want to mount that as well for better signal. Now, because it is networkable, everything is able to do firmware updates over the air. In other words, you don't have to take out a physical computer or a USB in order to update the firmware. You can do it right over the internet if you wanted to do that. Because it is on the cloud and because it is networked, whenever you call in for tech support, if you ever have tech support, that person is able to get into the system and take a poke around, take a look, see if there's any issues or problems there, or maybe help you with some questions that you might have about setting it up and diagnosing it. So as we spoke earlier, if you have an old legacy system, if you have an old legacy system and you want to replace that out because you want something that has app control and you want color screen, something that looks nicer, you can control up to 48 doors with that system. You can remove that old system, put in our new system, and it will still work all of that access control. So the only thing you're doing is replacing out the head end unit. These work off of 12 to 24 volts DC. We do have an optional battery backup port inside of this as well if you wanted to add that. There's a solar input as well for people that don't or can't get power there. That there is a switch in there that you can turn that feature on or off. What's nice about this is we can power this off of a normal transformer, as you would most other systems, but it's also PoE. You can power this off of PoE, and that's PoE++. So it does take quite a bit of power, but as long as you have PoE++, a switch, or you can add a injection to that, not a problem. Now you've got your internet, your Ethernet, and your power all in one cable, making it extremely easy. These will have Bluetooth readers for resident access. You'll be able to give out guest passes through your app as well. So if you have a visitor coming over and you just want to send them a expiring guest pass, you can do that. These new systems, instead of topping out at 48 doors, will do up to 100 doors. Okay. And you can do that as well on our wireless system. So if you can't get wired to a particular door or spot, you can do that wirelessly as well. You will have app control for each one of those expansion boards. This system, we do have something that's called an installer switch. Because this is programmed through the cloud, normally you would get into the cloud and you would make changes, and then you would see that work on the system itself. We went ahead and added a basic diagnostic switch, an on-off switch or an installer switch. If you are first installing this system and you want to test it, for example, you can turn that switch on and you can do some very basic testing. And that's what that's for. So the 2137 is the picture that we've been looking at this entire time. That's got your larger screen on it. It's an 8-inch display. It does video and voice calling, app control, entry codes, card access. And again, those are unlimited. So 100,000 or more if you wanted to. There is going to be a touchscreen available for that. The 2132 is the same exact thing, except there's some different aesthetics. So the 2132 has a 5-inch display as opposed to an 8-inch display. This is going to be very popular for East Coast, West Coast, maybe even some place like Chicago. So a large metropolitan area where there's just not a lot of space. If you can imagine, you go downtown New York, there's just not a lot of wall space for you to put a larger enclosure on. So these are very, very popular in those areas. It's got all the same features. It's the same board as the 2137. It's just in a smaller enclosure and a smaller screen. So the 2138 is the same board. So it's got all the same features. It just doesn't have the interactability. So it doesn't have the screen. It doesn't have a keypad that someone can interact with. It doesn't have a place to put a proximity reader. It still has the same board, so you still have 2-door controls with this, and it's expandable up to 100. This would normally go into a, let's just say you have a telephone entry system or a video entry system out at the vehicular gate. But now you need control of the pool and of the workout facility. What you could do is purchase a 2138, put that in a closet someplace, and now you've got full control that way. So it's just a separate unit. Within the cloud, you can put all of those control panels into one system so it looks and works as one system, if you'd like to do that. So now that we've talked about our video entry systems and our legacy telephone entry systems, we'll talk a little bit about our operators. So not only do we do access control and telephone entry systems, but we also, and this is how we started, Doorking did in 1948, is we started by building our own operators. So operator obviously is to open and close a vehicular gate. And we have different models of that available as well. So we have what's called a self-adjusting operator. And that's something that we developed and we came out with back in the day. That is a clutch-driven operator that is able to set its own open and close limits. You don't have to physically go in there and tell it when to stop in either direction. On power up, it will go slow, hit the end, make that adjustment, close, hit that end, make that adjustment, and it'll do it one more time. It's going to open fast. It's going to slow down to where it thinks that the limit is at. And when it hit that limit, that will be its final limit. And it does the same thing in reverse. Okay. These are meant for 150 and 120 volt AC systems. They are available for higher voltages if you need. You just order it that way, and we'll include a step-down transformer built into it. We also have uh, physical limit operators. So we talked a little bit earlier about the self-limiting. These are actually physical limits that you go in there and tell it when to stop, and tell it when to stop on open, tell it when to stop on the close. Again, these are 115 AC volt models. And this is available in either a 115 or 230 voltage. They're also available in solar models, so DC models, if you have maybe a ranch or someplace out where they can't get power to. These are, so again, we have everything available from, just like in the access control world, we have everything available from residential all the way up to maximum security. So this here would be our residential light duty operators. These are meant for smaller gates, they're lighter gates. These aren't going to be used as much on a daily operational base. In other words, our commercial-based operators are going to be what's called continuous duty. It could just be opening and closing all day long. Our light commercial, or excuse me, our light duty operators are not continuous. So you can use these up to maybe 300 times a day. And that includes open and close. So we do have a column mount operator. We have an in-ground version if you want to get that hidden. And we have our 6006 actuator as well. All of these systems have manual releases for safe operation. So if you lose power for some reason or something stops working, you've got that handle on that 6006 that you can unlock with your key, turn it to the 90-degree position, and that opens it up completely. Now you can manually open and close that gate. All of those systems that we just looked at for residential and light duty have one control board that you can use for all of those. So it makes it very simple. We do have a solar control option as well for that system. All of those can be connected in a what's called a primary or secondary functionality. So in other words, if I have a single gate, that's going to be in a primary. If I have two gates, that's going to be using a primary secondary. So you're going to have two operators. In our case, we try to make it as simple as possible. There's not a part number for the primary and a different part number for the secondary. It is the same unit. And it's just how it goes wired onto the control board tells it what it does. So we've talked about the light duty or residential. We also have a very large, very powerful operators in our maximum security lineup. So these, you'll find these in large chemical plants, industrial plants. These have to go in certain applications. You're not going to put one of these in the home, for example. It's just too dangerous and too expensive. For example, these are installed in the entire border, our southern border. We are the only ones allowed to be opening and closing those gates. It's just Doorking. We got thousands of them that are out there, and they work really, really well. So our 9200 series will be in the top left-hand side, right-hand side there. Will work up to an 8,000-pound gate and 100 feet long. Those will come available in 115 to 230 single phase. And you can also purchase those in a 208 to a 463 phase. Now, we always recommend going with the largest possible, right? So a 463 phase is going to be the most efficient and give you the best operation out of your system. These do have also what's called a variable speed drive. That gives you the ability to lower and raise the feet per second that it opens or closes. And that is adjustable. Our 9500 series are the big boys down here. And those will do up to a 28,000-pound gate and 160 foot long. Those are available in the same voltages, and it's got that same variable speed drive. For some of these systems do have a panic feature. Those are really popular in government facilities, military facilities. And we have set that to 6 feet per second. So it is extremely, extremely fast. That is only used in these maximum security operators. Hence, we don't want to put this in any other location other than a high security spot, like a chemical plant, government, military, things of that nature. We have barrier operators. If you're not familiar with these, you'll find these if you ever go to the airport or you go into a guarded parking facility. That's what a barrier operator does. It has the arm that goes up and down, letting you in or out. So these are very, very popular. If you are not familiar with these, I would suggest you familiarize yourself with these and start offering these. The market has gone crazy, and there's not a whole lot of people that will actually do these. So the 1601 is going to be our basic entry level, most popular unit. That will handle up to a 14-foot arm. Those arms are available in plastic, wood, or aluminum. They come in a couple different shapes, an octagonal shape, which has a channel at the bottom of it. So if you want to add a safety edge, if something hits it, it stops and reverses. That safety edge can also be lit as well, so you can see it better at night. It has a green light whenever it's in a fully upright, open position, and it's red when it's coming down or in the down position. We also have a round version available. Some people like that round look. We have a folding arm option for that. The folding arm is going to be used for a parking facility usually. So if this is inside a garage, you've only got you have a ceiling there, and you can't open up a 14-foot arm. We do have a folding arm, literally folds in half as it comes up. We have an optional breakaway kit for that operator as well. When someone hits these arms, you will most likely damage that arm or perhaps the operator. So what we came up with is what's called a breakaway feature. So that is ordered separately. It's a kit that you install on there. And what it does basically is it breaks away or pushes away if someone hits that arm. So it breaks away from the system, opens out of the way, right? Keeping all that stress and strain away from hopefully keeping that arm from being damaged, as well as damaging the operator itself and all the bushings and the linkages inside there. And we have the optional safety lighted edges and traffic lights. So we talked about what the edges were. Traffic light looks just like a traffic light that you're used to when you're out driving in the streets. These are great, again, for attention. They're great for if you're putting these in a warehouse, any place there's maybe a lot of trucks coming in. We do have a version that there's a shorter version and there's a really tall version for semi trucks, and it's just a red light, green light that comes on as well. 1602 has all of those options available for it as well. However, the 1602 differs in that it is a full 1 horsepower machine. And the reason why we do that is because we use much longer arms for this system. So this can do up to a 27-foot arm. You can imagine with that much length, you have a lot of leverage, a lot of weight at the end of that arm. So as you can see from the photo there, at the end, we have some counterweights that will help with that leverage. And we have a larger motor as well to help bring that up and handle that weight. Another parking barrier that we have available, and we would consider these more for industrial and maximum security as well. These are very, very, very popular in places like airports, rental car places. As a matter of fact, this particular one here that we're seeing, and we'll see a video in a little bit, is at Avis Budget Rental Car in LAX. They're in Portland. They're all over the place. So these come available in 9, 10, 12, and 14-foot lanes. So you can cover those size lanes. The aluminum arm works with a steel barrier, and we'll see that here in a little bit. By the way, you can see the traffic light on that photo as well, so it gives you an idea what that looks like. If you look down at the bottom or on the concrete or the asphalt level, you have a speed bump as well. That speed bump has a channel into it, and that lower arm actually lowers or folds down into that speed bump so that they can cross through it. We'll show you here a video of what that does. All right. So let me go back here. I have a little bit of a lag on this. All right. So we saw that video and what exactly it does. One thing I didn't mention that the video reminded me is inside that lower arm. Let me go back there real quick. Inside that lower arm, there is a 22,000 pound strap. Let me go back one more. So in that lower arm there, you have the barrier arm that goes up into the air, and you have the one that folds down. The one that folds down has a 22,000 pound strap inside of there. And if you can see, there's stanchions on either side, and it has those hooks. That is meant to catch the vehicle as it tries to ram through. So that 22,000 pound strap and those hooks will keep someone from escaping, right? From getting out or getting in to a location. Again, these are used for a lot of times. These are used for, and what you saw is for a car rental place. So what has happened in the past is that you just have a barrier arm, and in some of these larger cities where there's a lot of crime, you'll get 20 criminals coming in, and because the keys are already in the car, everybody will get in the car. Then they have a sacrifice or a sacrificial vehicle that they'll use to ram it, and everybody else follows through. Well, you can't do that with this system because when that first car hits it, it gets stuck there, and now they can't steal the other vehicles. So let's talk now about our wedge. So go back here. So we'll talk about a wedge. This is again another parking barrier, but this is going to be a lot beefier. This is really going to be used for those same applications. A lot of oil refineries love these. City, state, federal use these as well. So the 1625 is our wedge barrier, and that can cover anything from a 12 to an 18-foot opening. Um, this particular model is crash rated. So you can take a vehicle and you can hit this thing and you're not getting past it. So this is PU 30, P1 for our smaller 12-foot section, and we're PU 30, P2 for our larger wedges. And they're pretty much the same thing. PU 30, P1 is going to stop you and you're not going to get past it at all. And a PU30 P2 means that you have gone a maximum of 2 feet beyond the limit, right? And you'll see that here in the next video we show in a little while. Again, these come in 115 volts. We can get them in larger voltages if need to, and we will provide a step-down transformer. So this is what that looks like. This is going to be our the actual video of our crash rating. Okay, so that was our crash rating. All right, so those are our legacy products. Just as in the access control side of things that we call Evolve, which is our new product that's coming out, we've evolved into more modern network style system. We're doing the same thing with our operators. So these are totally redesigned. We are making these systems. As a matter of fact, if you look at the picture there, that is the picture of the actual board itself, the control board. That one board will work for every single one of our operators. So in other words, it'll work for swing gates, slide gates, barrier gates. It'll work with any of those models with physical or auto limits. So it's the same board will work for every single one of those. So there's no longer having to carry around a bunch of different boards or warranty out a bunch of different boards. It's one universal control board works everything. And it's the same thing with the barriers. So the barriers we just looked at will have this system as well. So on the board itself, there's programming from the LCD display. You can download any of that programming that you've set up on that system, and you can also upload any of that programming that you've done on that system. That's good for if you have a cookie cutter location, or maybe you have a location that has multiple operators or gates on it. You can program one, download that onto your USB, go to the next one, hit enter, and you are finished programming. That simple. There is a quick start program guide that whenever you first turn these on, that it will walk you through to get you up and running in just a few minutes time. There's type D operation on this, which just means you're able to open and close it by pushing and holding the button. So you can do testing. There's tamper protection. There's power failure options. In other words, what do you want it to do on power failure? Do you want it to open that gate? Do you want it to secure that gate? What do you want it to do? There is an audible sound whenever there's a right before it opens for safety purposes. If you want to turn that on or off, you have a transaction archive. So anytime that gate has been operated, it will create a log, and you can get in there and take a look and see what happened or when it happened. If there is a problem or an issue with power or a safety device, it will also be logged, and you can find it in that log as well. You can do all logs, or you can go in there and do individual logs. For example, I can go in there and I can look up just error logs, right? And I can get in there and see what happened at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a lot of power up built into these. So it's got 3 amps of power. So now you can share that power source with your UL devices or your remote control or receiver. These units have 3 UL open and close inputs on them as well. I don't have a picture of it here, but those are going to be module based. So there's no wiring. You just have 3 openings. You can slide each loop detector or whatever the module is. You can plug it right in. There's a reverse stop input and a fire department input for those locations that have fire department regulations. So here's what those modules I was talking about a little bit ago looked like. So within that gate operator, you'll have this in there, and we have a radio receiver, an edge receiver, a reverse exit, a shadow loop receivers. If you for safety or for open or close, free exit, whatever you want to use it for. We also have a network card at the very top there. So these will be able to connect to the network. So now if you have an issue with the gate and you get a call from your customer, instead of rolling a truck out there and spending an hour or two to get out there and having to get off the vehicle and trying to figure out what's going on, you can actually network into it on the cloud and see what's going on. You can see if there was an issue. Maybe they don't have power. Maybe they lost power at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and it went into a hard shutdown. Or let's just say it hit something. You'll see a UL 325 input, right? So it's very nice to have. This is going to have Bluetooth capabilities. So from your smartphone, I can program that system instead of doing it physically. It does have wireless connectivity to the 2100 video entry systems, which is going to be nice. So that's everything that we offer. Just about everything. Most of the most important things that we offer, popular things, I should say. But one thing I did want to bring up also is take a look at our resources that are available for you. Most people don't know that we have these resources available. They're great. If you need to find out how something works or how something programs, or you just want to see a ad, maybe you want to send out to your end user. If you go to youtube.com, DKS Doorking, that will take you to our channel. Our channel has probably 550 or so videos, and that's going to give you just short snippets of technical, how to do something, how to add a resident, how to remove a resident, how to move your software to a cloud, things of that nature. It's a great resource. It's one of my favorite. On our website, we also have something that's called an alt products documentation page. On that page, you will have access to literally every single thing that we've ever created. So you will have literature, you'll have quick start guides, you'll have owner's manuals, warranties, you'll have product lists, product pricing schedules, the whole 9 yards, all online. Okay, so that's available as well. And again, all of this is available at www.doorking.com. All right. I appreciate everybody joining. If you have any questions, please reach out to EPCOM. If you have questions for myself, I'm Paul Giesman with Doorking. You can reach out to EPCOM. They can give you that contact information if they'd like. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining.